Hi, I'm Jiggs Burgess, and I'm the author of both Wounded Sparrow and The Red Suitcase. And if you want to learn more about either one or both these plays, then keep listening. I fell in love with theater as a kid. We had a local community theater back then that did a lot of outreach to kids. But my parents also used to go into Fort Worth and Dallas to see theater. So it wasn't a strange thing for us. I mean, even though my dad was a cowboy, um, he loved literature and theater and things like that. Why did I have to? I mean, just become part of the theater? How could you not? I mean, it's theater's life. It incorporates everything. It incorporates history and romance and sadness and happiness, and you can be whoever, whatever you want to be. As a writer, I can be all those characters at once. So, yeah, there's no way I couldn't be a part of theater. I fell in love with it again as a child. I fell in love with writing uh, really around fifth grade. It's when I felt voiceless and writing gave me a voice. And it's about that time I found out that writing could be powerful too, that it had effects on people. And sometimes not such great effects, but it had an effect on people. And it, it really was an obsession from then, from childhood. I have had times where I stopped writing from uh, September 11th, 2001 until about 14 years later. I did not write because it didn't seem important. And then I realized at some point just how important it was to me. And so I went back to writing. My process is, I think, not like a lot of people. I tend to write in my head a lot before I ever put it down on paper. And so that I've got the story and most of the characters there. Now, with, say, the Red Suitcase, that changes completely, because the Red Suitcase was supposed to be another type of play, completely. And once I got into writing it, I had to go back and rewrite everything, uh, because my process was just going in and writing and to get to see what it was about. And it turned out not to be the story I thought it was going to be. But I think a lot of writers map out, on paper, things like that. I don't. I do it. I in my head a lot. I'm not going to say I don't organize or I don't map things out, but it happens in my head, and so that whenever I start to write a piece, I can really hear those voices. And it's a lot of people think it's weird when I say I can hear the voices, but it's not the same thing as just hearing. It's just hearing it in your head, like your voice is your narrator in your head. But I'm able to do that in my head, and so that whenever I start to write, I hear that voice or those voices is never just one, and it just kind of comes out at that point. If it's good, it just comes out at that point. If it's not so good, then it might be a little bit more of a struggle. But after your first draft, I mean, your first draft's always going to be crap. But it's all about the rewriting. Then after that, that's the next part of the process. The first part is just getting it on paper and getting your ideas down, and it's going to be crap. But in the rewriting, you find um, what the piece wants to be, what it needs to be. It's kind of like carving out of a piece of stone, I guess. But you see the form there, and in the rewriting, you can make the form happen. Well, theater is not complete without either a audience or the actors, which is why it's unique. A novel, you sit down by yourself and read, and you find those characterizations yourself based on whatever the author has written. Uh, but in the theater, it takes both that actor and the audience, as well as the writer, um, to complete the piece. And the piece is never the same. I read somewhere, and I can't remember who the playwright was that said this, but he said that writing a novel, you get to go back and meet your old friends, and when you read it, you get to go back to meet your old friends, and they're always the same person. In theater, you go to see your old friends, and they're constantly different. So it doesn't matter what day you see it on, it's going to be a different, or what production. If it's the same production on different nights, it's going to be different. And well, that's life, isn't it? Everything's constantly changing. Nothing's ever the same. And and I, to me, that's why I love sitting in a theater, and I can set shows 2 or 3 times and just love it because I can see the differences. Uh, and with actors, as a writer, you just can't do it without the actors. It doesn't matter how well I write if I don't have really good actors. Then it doesn't work. It's, once again, not complete. Oh gosh, Wounded's a twisted little tale. It came to me as I was sitting on my back porch watching my hummingbirds, and you'll see how that's that's definitely where it comes from when you see the play. Uh, it's it's a tale that I've been obsessed in the last few years with justice and revenge. And when is it justice and when is it revenge? And this doesn't deal with the justice part. This is really about revenge. But I had this, and I had that voice of the lead character, and I knew that he had been wounded, and I knew he was an incredibly wounded character. But I also felt, knew he was funny, and that he would amuse people. But I had, he wouldn't leave me alone till I wrote him, number one. And it just turned out that this obsession of mine with justice and revenge fits in with that character really well. And once again, I don't want to go too far into that. Maybe saying it's about revenge is actually too far, because the first probably third of the play, you're just going to love him. You're just gonna, he's gonna be, I think, somebody you want to know. And the last third, I think you're gonna understand just how damaged this guy is and how dark he can be. So, well, it's about Carrol. Carrol is he is a mediocre writer at best. He's had three books published. One was made into a movie. It was the worst movie, the only movie that Meryl Streep ever did that got bad reviews, according to him. And but he's been forced to move back to his hometown to take care of his mother. He promised his father before he died that he would do this, even though he has brothers that could do some of this. He's promised that he would. And in doing that, it just has dredged up a lot of pain for him over the years, until we get to this point where this friend comes to visit, and I say friend loosely, but the friend dredges up more childhood, junior high school pain for him, and it's, I think it's he had a revenge fantasy, and he sees the opening to actually make that fantasy real. Yeah, I think that theme is that we're all damaged, and some of us are more damaged than others, and hide it until we can't anymore. I think that's the major theme for that show. Only the second part of Wounded is being performed because I think time. There's just a certain amount of time that you have at Fringe, and that's whether it's time to come in and set, or the time that you have, the amount of time, because people want to go on and get to other shows. And as a matter of fact, this act, I mean, Wounded. The play is called Wounded Sparrow, and the first act is called Sparrow, and the second act is called Wounded. And they're really both two separate plays to be done together. And Wounded, we may have to even kind of cut a little bit of it to fit into the time that we have. And that's the main reason that we're only doing the second part. The other reason is that I'm not sure that the first act is completely ready. And also, if we do just the second act, it's not really considered a world premiere. And so I keep that on the table for that show. Uh, but I've got incredible actors. It's a two-hander, and just once again, just incredible actors. I don't know how I've gotten so lucky. Craig Taggart has been with this show from the earliest drafts as a reader. He just came in with the right voice, the right attitude. Um, I didn't think I'd be ever be able to find anybody that was exactly what I wanted for this part. And this actor can do it. He's just incredible in this role. It's like I had written it for him, but I had not. Um, and then Shaw, who plays Robert, the second character, he was a friend of Craig's, who we were auditioning, and Craig said, "Well, I've got this person who'd like to." And from that first tape, it was just amazing. And so the two of them together are going to blow this show out of the water. Once we get once we get it on stage and get it all polished up. If the show doesn't do well, it's not because of them. It's the script, because they're just incredible. I think they're going to be surprised with their change of feeling for Carrol. I think they're going to be surprised with what he's made of. Without kind of going any further, I think some of the things he brings up will surprise. Now, I also think that we have to warn people. There's a lot of sexual kind of violence that he talks about. So that's, I'm hoping that we get that warning out so that it doesn't surprise people in that way, and that's not a good thing. But I think they're going to be surprised by the fact that they're going to go home and they're going to feel conflicted by these characters. Who's right, who's wrong, and I don't think there is an answer to that. People should go to, well, they must go see Craig and Shaw play these parts. Is one of the reasons they must. Uh, and they should, because I think it's going to once again, to me, the biggest thing about theater is that it makes you feel something. And I think whether whether or not you like what it makes you feel, and I think that this show will make you feel, and it will make you want to discuss things afterwards. And so for that reason, I think people should go see it. I personally think the writing's good, but I would. I don't always think that about my writing, though. But I think that there are things in the script that are just well done, and with those actors, I don't think people want to miss that. I think it's something that people are going to talk about. If we get it right, it's gonna be legendary, iconic, whatever you want to say. My hopes and dreams for the full show, Wounded Sparrow, is um well, that I can get it whipped in shape to have that world premiere, and that since it's a really only, well, there are four characters, but one character does not speak in the first um, act. It's a small enough show that people can do it. Uh, my hope is that this is one of the shows that I've become known for. I mean, Red Suitcase too, but I think Wounded doesn't pull any punches, and I hope it's compared favorably to other modern works. And I'm not going to say that because I don't want to be that kind of that kind of ego doesn't suit me well. But I hope it's is compared favorably to other late 20th century, early 21st century writers. Um, and that's really my hope for this play, that it's one of those things that I've become known for. And it's an unusual play for me. And in its darkness, it's unusual for me. Because I like that ending that show with hope. And I think you're ambiguous about that at the end of this play. Well, I found P3 Theater Company through the Dale Shores Foundation. I was lucky enough to win their first Southern Writers contest in the playwriting, full length playwriting category. And John happened to be one of the adjudicators of that. He was had all the finalists. He judged all the finalists. And after the award was announced through the Dale Shores Foundation, uh, he reached out to me to produce the show, and that's part of winning the Dale Shores uh, writer search. Is that the second my dog's here? uh, but that's part of winning the Dale Shores writer search, is that money is given towards the production. So it's a unique opportunity to get together with a production company, and you have whoever comes to you. And I like John because in P3 because it's it was obvious that he loved the script. It was obvious that he was going to be I don't want to say gentle with the script, but he was going to be authentic with the script. He wasn't going to ask to say in outer space, or something like that. And so, and I just personally had a connection with John as well. And none of that would have happened without Dale Shores and without Dale Shores Foundation and all the people involved in that. I'm incredibly grateful to both the Dale Shores and the foundation. Well, I like to say that, like all good things, the idea for the Red Suitcase came from from a hotel room in Midland, Texas. I had gone. I was watching a high school, do one of my shows, and I stayed over in Midland, Texas. I had this dream that I was this. It was just bizarre, but I was a Red Suitcase. And so I went to see the show that day, and I texted my friends like I had a dream I was a Red Suitcase. Well, while I was at the show, uh, it just wouldn't leave me alone. And right after the curtain fell, I had to write a monologue. I mean, just right there in that theater, I wrote this monologue, and it's the opening monologue, and very little has changed about that monologue. Uh, and then on the drive home, what was supposed to be the original play came to me in a form, and it was supposed to be a story about a boy and his dog, an adventure. Uh, but I got to writing it, and I came to a place where something big happened, and I'm not going to give that away. But I realized I had to go back and relook at what the play was. But it, like a lot of my shows, just would not leave me alone, and that's the reason I had to write it. If I didn't, it would have driven me nuts. What I can tell you about the play is that it's a play about a man trying to come to terms with um, his father, and so you know this man has already gone through this sequence of events, and he's trying to make sense of it. And one of the ways he's trying to make sense of it is by telling the story to us, to the audience. And with his he's trying to reconcile who his father was and his relationship with his father, with the violence that had been there, and with the love that came about later in life. And he's reconciling himself. He's letting go of a lot of self-hatred in doing that, and understanding that his father was doing what his father learned had been passed down to him through the generations. It starts out, one of the starting lines is, "We are the sins of our ancestors." And the closing line is, "We are the hope of our ancestors." And it's the journey between thinking you're a sin to thinking you're hope. And that really is the arc of the play. The father changes long before the narrator does. And it is a very personal story to me. I will say that. Dale actually excused himself from judging in the contest because he knew several people in different categories. So it was a surprise to me that, well, it was always going to be a surprise to me that I won, because I just don't know. But the reading that we had in Dallas through the Dale Shores Foundation was just an incredible thing. We had actually, I believe, 4 actors that will be in the LA production were readers, and it was as close to a night of full theater as I've ever been to in a reading. It was just incredible. The whole cast was spot on. We didn't have much of a rehearsal, so that was even more incredible that they were able to do that. And it was incredible is the only word that I can come up with, but it's not the right word, because it was so much more than incredible. I'd heard these words read before, but not by such a talented cast. I'm not saying that my readers before weren't talented, but these people were spot on. And I think, as much as anything, to me, having it was a small theater, but a small theater full of people listening to these words and hearing their reactions, the laughter at the appropriate time, which is always nice. And then the emotion that came through, and how that piece connected. And it connects with people in a way that I had not expected. I thought it might be so personal that it might not connect. And Dale Shores directed the reading. And so when we were doing the show through P3, we had another director, and that director was unable to continue. And Dale surprised me. He called John and told him he wanted to do it, and they both just kind of held off on the information for me for a while. And then John got a hold of me and said, "I found a director, and I don't know if you will approve of him." And so by the time I found out, of course I approve. How exciting is that Dale Shores is going to direct your show? And from what I understand, Dale doesn't direct other people's shows. There's this show, and there is another show that P3 is doing for Fringe called Wounded, and he had at one time expressed a desire to direct it. He's not for Fringe, and we're only doing part of that play. but it's just exciting, and he can bring along the actors that I want to. He, like I say, we have four of the lead actors that are from that reading that were so good. And he's got such a good eye for actors, and especially for this kind of work that is very much set in Texas. And he has an eye for authenticity, and I just couldn't be happier. And Blake McIver is the assistant director who has quite a background himself as a child star and as a uh, singer and director himself. So I've got kind of a dream team. I mean, down to the design artists that I have. And I say I have, that we have. It's just I got goosebumps now just thinking about it. And I do want to kind of cry about it because it's so incredible. And John has brought all this together. It's just in heaven, Dell, just the cherry on top. Well, it is the cake too. It's the cake and the cherry. Well, to have those people who did the reading come in and do your show, and it's, you know, the fact that they were outstanding in the reading and they understood those parts right away, it just takes a load off as a playwright. And the fact that Dale had could bring them along. Two of them are coming from Dallas to do this show, and they are doing it because they want to. It's certainly not for the money. And then I have two that are already in LA, but one just moved there, and the other is Emerson. But Emerson Collins, who is also Dale's writing partner, had read this play and wanted to be a part of the reading. And when he read, I was like, he's got to be Pogue. He's got to be that lead character. And the fact that he's available, and it is beyond to me, because it is important to have people that love the script, who understand it, and have the talent to interpret it. Because some people love the script and they understand it, they don't have the chops, especially for the role of Bud, who's the father, who has to go kind of from a villain to somebody that we love and care about at the very end. It's not an easy thing at all. Uh, and so to bring those people in that know the script, it means everything. I don't have to teach them. I don't have to go through the motivations and things like that often you do with actors. It's just a wonderful thing. I'm looking to see how it connects with the audience and with the actors and the audience. Um, there's nothing more that I love. There's nothing I love more than setting in an audience and hearing the laughs where they're supposed to be, and hearing the tears where they're supposed to be, and knowing that I have now done something, told a story that has moved people and become a part of their lives. And that's all I'm looking for. I mean, any of the success that comes from this is great, but if it touches people and connects with them on a emotional level, that's all I can ask. I think it's going to surprise them how much they care for the father, for Bud. I think it's going to, well, I think the storytelling in itself is different enough um, to surprise them. But I really think that relationship that they're going to have with Bud, with the father, um, is going to surprise people. I mean, I think we know that we're going to love Pogue, who is the narrator from the beginning, but we don't know that for the father figure. And I just really think that's what's going to surprise people. People are like, should, they must. I'm not that dominant. I think people should go see the play, because I think it's gonna connect with them and change their lives a little bit. Um, it's um, it's a universal story, told in not quite a universal way, but people should come to see it because I think it's going to affect them and change some of their thinking about parent-child relationships, um, about their own family, about their own parents, maybe. Um, I, I'm not trying to tell people that relationship is universal, but I just want them to think about their relationships with their parents. Um, and I think that's why they should. Now, whether they must or not is a different story. They must because I need them to see it. you know, they must because Del Shores directed it. They must because Emerson Collins is playing Pogue. They must because John at P3 has really put his heart into it and to make it the best production it can be. I just hope it gets produced. It is a play that should be produced. Speaking my dreams out loud, I would love for it to go to New York. I'd love for it to be in Chicago. I'd love for it to be in Dallas or Atlanta too. But I'd really love for it to go to New York because I think this script is strong enough to do that and connects well enough with people to do that. Uh, it's uh, well, that's what I hope. That's what I hope for this play. I had originally had some producers that looked at it from Manhattan Theater Club, and it just wasn't what they were looking for at the time. This is kind of right in the middle of COVID. Uh, so uh, so yeah, I think it can go to New York. I think it could do well. I would love to see this production go to New York, just pick up and go, which would just be the dream of dreams, wouldn't it? From my point of view, the people, actors and technicians and writers and theater people in general should get involved with P3 because it's an authentic production company. They care about the writing, they care about the acting, they care about the technical aspects. From my point of view, from what I have, and they're honest, and that's sometimes hard to find in this business. And John is just incredibly supportive, and I think I'm not the only one he's supportive to. I think he's just one of those people who is incredibly supportive and creative and wants things done in a very honest and authentic way. And I think that's a must. So should have, but should. But I think people need to get involved with P3 for that reason, whether it's a volunteer or as an actor, or technician, director. Theater companies like P3, the small theater companies like John has, is they need people's donations and they need money to they produce people that wouldn't get produced, say the Manhattan Theater Club or any of the big LA or Chicago or New York producers. It probably wouldn't touch me because I'm not known. Um, and with John, he saw a script that he liked, he thought would work, he kind of fell in love with. Um, and he went with it. And small theater companies can do that. And it's important that we have that because how does a writer or an actor or a director get known if they don't have a company like P3 to start with to help them, to nudge them along and to do their work. Um, and that's why people should get involved and donate and do what they can for companies like P3. It's incredibly important to our cultural life in this country. Our cultural life is kind of falling apart right now, and it needs all the help it can get. Hi, I'm Jiggs Burgess, and I'm the playwright of both The Red Suitcase and of Wounded Sparrow. And I would just like to invite you to come see one or both these shows, either now or sometime in the future, because I think you're going to be blown away. See you at the theater.